Belichick's lost a step to me.
I'm not going to do this.
This is Anik Squared.
So you hear the show open, and I have to say, we recorded that last year, beginning of last year, and you hear me say, like, Belichick's lost a step, and then you jump in like, I'm not going to do this. Well, we haven't done it all year, but we're doing it now. All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome, episode 6, Anik Squared, week 6. We come at you Wednesday, October 11th. So do I have to, ask you how you're doing? Pleasantries? I know you got a new dog. You want that shit, too?
Happy Gilmore to Chubbs Peterson in 1996. I'm stupid. You're smart. I was wrong. You were right. You're the best. I'm the worst. You're very good looking. I'm not attractive. I'm not sure exactly what you want. Yes, you have been suggesting for 18 months what the world is seemingly suggesting right now, that Bill Belichick, at the very least, needs to relinquish control of personnel matters. I wouldn't necessarily have used the senile adjective, but yes, you were absolutely right. And that's obviously a big part of the lead story this week in the National Football League, whether you're a Bostonian or not. The end of an era, or so it would appear, is imminent.
So Jon Anik, my identical twin brother, the voice of the UFC, while he is a mixed martial arts fanatic at this point, we grew up on the NFL, and we grew up in the 80s being fans of this Patriots team when they weren't good. So it's not as if this is something we're not used to. But Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots are one of, if not the worst team in the National Football League right now. And even that utterance is amazing to me. I've felt as though they were been irrelevant in a lot of ways since Brady left. And Brady really did cover up, in my opinion, a lot of the sort of roster deficiencies over the years, whether it's, you see Patrick Mahomes win a Super Bowl the year after losing Tyreek Hill. Tom Brady did that stuff all the time. And without Brady there, you just can't overcome some of Belichick's roster deficiencies. But him not picking the players, that's something I've been talking about for 3-4 years, no?
Well, excuse me on that, but it shouldn't be mind-numbing to you that they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. I mean, however wrong I might have been in terms of supporting Belichick blindly, unconditionally, in totality, the notion that this season they were going to be anything falls on a lot of different people. What exactly were they going to be? Were they going to compete for a playoff spot, which I know is Robert Kraft's desire? Were they going to compete for a Super Bowl because the defense was good? Who is to blame for going into any singular season with Mac Jones as QB1? And that's just one example, right? You don't have a WR1, which is short for wide receiver. 0 100-yard rushers, 0 100-yard receivers in a singular game through 5 weeks. Has that ever happened before in the NFL? I'm sure it has.
Yeah.
Mac Jones's passing yards trajectory, 316, then 231, then down to 201, 150, and then 110. I'm just fascinated to see how they respond against the Raiders this week. Raiders -3 might very well end up in my 5.
I went back today and watched Mac Jones highlights from the game he played on Thanksgiving, I believe, or right around Thanksgiving against the Minnesota Vikings last year. And it's unbelievable. Feet looked a little quicker, but it was just so much confidence. It wasn't even necessarily the feet were quicker. Did he hop in his step? You know what I mean? Because he felt a little juice. Dan Orlovsky was saying, he said this to our boy Rex Ryan. I can't believe I'm calling him
our boy. Do not at all, right?
But he sees Mac Jones the same way we do.
Oh, I don't even like when you call. Yeah, moving on.
So Orlovsky said, well, what if Mac Jones was in San Francisco, and Rex lit him up? How dare you disrespect Brock Purdy like that? It's just not the case. And I feel bad for Mac.
What Dan Orlovsky said essentially was that if Mac Jones was in San Francisco, he would be realizing similar success to Brock Purdy, which is not at all true. I mean, you and I are certainly aligned with Rex Ryan. We don't believe that as much as we may like Dan Orlovsky.
That's the point. Speaking of Brock Purdy, though, I really hope this San Francisco team stays healthy, because I tell you what, I was thinking about telling you today that I'm worried about the 18-0 Patriots, or, at least the undefeated regular season, I should say 16-0. This 49ers schedule is so tough, though. It's hard for me not to think they have a hiccup at some point. But if they stay healthy, all 3 phases, look out, just dismantle Dallas.
Well, 17-0 is harder to realize than even 16-0. That felt just so far off in the distance. And then the Patriots obviously were able to accomplish that, but they were not able to complete the mission. But yeah, the San Francisco 49ers look scary, and you've certainly benefited from that opinion at the window. I think we'll get a lot of answers this weekend against the Cleveland Browns in terms of just how elite an outfit that is going to be, either historically or this season. But as much as I want them to stay healthy, I am sitting on a fat ticket, actually fattest piece of paper sports wagering wise of my life in the desk drawer in front of me if you want to rob my house here. But on the Philadelphia Eagles to win the NFC. So while I do hope that the Niners stay healthy, it wouldn't be bad if they lost a game before it's all said and done.
I hear you. All right, we're going to get back, talk a little bit about our Week 5 selections. Those of you who haven't joined us in the past, each week on Anik Squared, we each pick 5 games against the spread, go head-to-head against each other. So let's get to our first segment, Tire and Ice, presented by Toyo Tires. Guys, the road ahead for this football season is uncertain, and there's definitely no map available for players, fans, or coaches. But in order to arrive at the big games, you need to get there safely. So the next time you're in the market for tires, there's no better option route than a quick slant to Toyo Tires. Whether it's a set of open country tires for the mountains of Denver or 4 new Celsius sports for a city like Los Angeles, you can ride with confidence and no regrets with their 500-mile or 45-day trial. Open roads await this fall. Hit up toyotires.com to find a dealer near you. Toyo Tires. Open roads await.
Open roads await. There is no anticipation as a sports fan other than maybe a UFC pay-per-view. Sunday, 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 a.m. if you're in Hawaii, I think. I should say.
Yeah.
But there's just nothing like it. Open roads ahead or await. Either way, every time at 1 o'clock, everything seems rosy. And then by 1:15, I'm Angry Johnny.
So the Westgate Super Contest, each week we pick 5 games against the spread. So Anik Squared is some sort of an exercise for us as we try to select our best 5 games against the spread to take them into the Westgate Super Contest. So last week in the contest, 3-2 overall. Overall, 12-13, just kind of a whole lot of nothing. We've gone 2-3, 2-3, 2-3, 3-2, 3-2. At least we're on a better track. But at 6-9, you're sort of happy to creep toward 500. But just to give you a little perspective, the leader currently in the Westgate Las Vegas Super Contest, Cala Cracker, with 20 points at 19-4-2. So that's basically 4 wins every week, 4-1 every week. 50th place, which I believe still gets you in the money, 17 points, right? Pretty good.
God, look at these guys, man.
So even if we go 5-0 this week and get to that 17, you can be sure all those cats are going to win a game or 2 this week. So
that's
it's
all right.
tough.
Let's pop a 5-0, man. Just pop a 5-0.
So dead last, right? 5.5 points. The guy who's dead last, right? Stands alone. He has, I believe, like 7 entries, this guy. So it's Wood Whopper 1. He has 2 entries tied for dead last at 5.5. So you have to think maybe he didn't get some in one week. But literally, this one dude has 5.5 points.
No, I'm just going to interject here because I do believe you win $100,000 if you pick every game and finish last.
Which is interesting. You took the words out of my mouth. And so whether he missed, so he probably didn't miss. Maybe he's going with the Carolina Panthers every week. 4-1 against the spread. Who knows? But anyway, so
maybe that should be our strategy next year. Try to miss every game.
Well, it is interesting. You know, I heard someone talking about a survivor pool at the beginning of the season. For those of you who don't know, survivor pool, you have pick one team, can't pick the same team on a given week. You pick one team just to win outright. And they were talking about just going with the team who is facing the Panthers every week. Hasn't burned you so far. They played some bad teams too and lost. Anyway, our head-to-head picks, 2-3 for you this week, 3-2 for me. So that takes you to 11-14 overall. I go to 15-10 overall. So a 4-game lead, your 3 losses this week. Bills -5.5 versus the Jaguars. Commanders -6.5 the Thursday night versus the Bears. And I have to just say there, I would have been on the Commanders here as well. You went with them first, so I benefited from there. My replacement pick of the Colts did hit. But that Thursday night, we'll get into that game in a second. You also lost the Cardinals +3 versus the Bengals. Your 2 hits, Texans +2 at Falcons, Saints +1.5 at Patriots. Let's talk on the Commanders.
It was +2.5 for the Texans, and I needed every bit of that hook. If you remember correctly, I got a good number there.
Well, you did. Yeah, you did, right? Well, it was 2 on the show, but yeah, that's true. And I believe it did close at 1.5. Anyway, the Commanders on Thursday night, we really regretted. We brought this pick from your 5 over into the contest, and you were like, we're never playing the Thursday night game again. Man, that didn't feel good. When Dick Butkus passed away, rest in peace, but you just felt like that the Bears were just going to come out. And I feel like I ignored a lot of what they did against the Broncos the previous week, even though they threw up all over themselves at the end.
Well, my Washington football team hat arrived one day too late. You happened to be in my driveway when it showed up at the front door. So I don't necessarily think all is lost for the Commanders. But yeah, I said on the show that I felt like the risk factor was high there, that I had a lot of risk tolerance playing a Thursday night game. And I might just be back on it this week because it features the best player in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, and the Kansas City Chiefs, So, but yeah, I mean, that was probably a wayward selection. I think my worst selection was the Arizona Cardinals +3 against the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, Joe Burrow's an MMA fan, right? We follow each other on Instagram. It doesn't necessarily mean that I know that he's going to have that type of hop in his step. Cincinnati, incidentally, playing Seattle here going into the bye week this weekend. So that bears watching. That'd be a huge win for them if they could level the record before the bye week. But yeah, I mean, overall, I feel pretty good about the way I'm seeing the board. I'm trailing you a little bit, but I have very, very much confidence that at season's end we'll be on top of the Boca Bun.
And I will say quickly on the Saints-Patriots, I know we talked about the Patriots much more than I want to on this show, but the Saints +1.5, there were a lot of sharps, really, and I'm not suggesting I'm a sharp, but I really thought the Patriots were going to find a way there. But you were certainly bullish on the Saints. Kind of wish we pulled that one into the contest.
Well, the Saints are on a pretty historical run in terms of what their defense has done and holding teams under 20 points, and I think they have another opportunity to do that this weekend, but you can't fool me. You can't fool me. And there's just no way I would go to the window and bet the New England Patriots this weekend. I even hear a lot of people suggest, +3, right? Because there's a lot of similarities between the Vegas Raiders, or the Las Vegas Raiders, I should call them. Careful. They're not the Vegas Golden Knights. A lot of similarities, though, between the Las Vegas Raiders and the New England Patriots, insofar as they're both just exceedingly bad and statistically bad, really, on both sides of the ball, and not making good in-game decisions nor adjustments, right? So one team catching 3, theoretically steaming after these historically bad losses for Bill Belichick, in theory, is a good spot for New England, and I'm supposed to, put my hard-earned money down on the New England Patriots? No, Vegas -3. That's the play. It's not in my 5.
I like it. So I went 3-2 overall, lost the Ravens -4 at the Steelers. We brought that into the contest. I lost the Rams +4.5 at the Eagles. And I told Cody Merrow, our producer, by the time this game started to creep the weekend, I absolutely liked the Eagles. Cody liked the Eagles. He sold me a little bit even right after this show. Chris Sims sold me a little bit on the Eagles. And it's not even necessarily the noise, right? Peter King really liked the Rams along with me. And I really respect his opinion, but it just, a lot of these games tough to predict. The pick I like the most, 49ers -3.5 versus Cowboys. That certainly came in. Levels to this shit, man, with San Francisco. Dolphins -10.5. We brought that into the contest. That I think was 11 in the contest. And then Colts -1, which was my replacement. So 3-2, a lot of blah, but quickly on our super contest picks, right? So we had the Lions -9.5, which was a beautiful hit against the Panthers. Colts +1. Dolphins -11. Those were the 3 hits in the contest. And then we brought the Commanders in on Thursday night, and then Ravens -4 at the Steelers. So it was nice to get to 3-2 in the contest when we were 0-1 going into Sunday.
Well, and I also like to lean more into the wins, right? Especially when they are no doubters. We had to sweat the Indianapolis Colts, but we really didn't have to sweat the Dolphins and the Detroit Lions laying a combined 20 points or so. So having the conviction to back big favorites and good teams, even if sometimes you're swallowing the points reluctantly. So I think that is something that I'm definitely going to lean into. And I'm not going to lean too much negatively into the losses at this point in time. Like I'm shooting for 3-2s. And then you start popping a 4-1 or a 5-0. And, you feel a bit less square than you do the week before, but it's week to week, and I do think you'll probably see me on more of these good teams going forward. If there's been any sort of deviation from the way I have handicapped the NFL and betted in the past, which has been a lot of home underdogs and underdogs, I'm betting a lot of favorites right now.
Well, and the Bills and the Dolphins with these matchups this weekend as 13, 14-point favorites, I think some of these, with facing the Carolina Panthers and the New York Giants, some of these lines as they get later in the season, odds makers a little gun shy right now. You're not seeing the 17, 18, 19s out there. But the Buffalo Bills are ripe this weekend. I didn't have the balls to put it in my 5 because it's just kind of a big number. And Giants score a touchdown to start out of the gate, you got to sort of score 30 points and shut the team out the rest of the way. But I was happy we leaned into the Lions and the Dolphins last week because they're both fully capable of putting up 30 points every week.
Your guy, Brian Daboll, back in Buffalo, huh? Giants +14. G-Men +14, not in my 5.
Daniel Jones probably going to play. But this league week to week is really from a gambling standpoint. We do our show whether it's Wednesday or Tuesday. My everything changes, and it's not even just injuries. Your feel for the games, right? It's like I love the Ravens. There's great statistics for them last week going on the road, but Pittsburgh at home, you could be sure I tuned enough noise in to really like Pittsburgh. But frankly, the Ravens, a lot of them are bouncing the wrong way. Ravens up 7 to up 10-3 the whole game, so that one certainly could have gone our way.
And I apologize if I'm stealing your thunder and you have Ravens stuff later on. I think they're playing the Tennessee Titans in London, if I'm not mistaken. And they went early, by the way. So Tennessee, I think, stayed back and Baltimore turned it around on Monday. But my goodness, right? Like, yeah, Lamar Jackson made a bad play. The great Lamar Jackson at the end of the game. But gosh, these guys are just dropping balls and not making plays. Like, I think the Ravens are leaving so much on the table that nobody is surprised in the NFL world when they beat good teams like 31-10. So if any team is sort of underachieving relative to its ceiling in the AFC right now, I kind of think it's the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah. And some weeks I'll have a good feel, some weeks a better feel than others. But certainly I do consider myself to be a square. Our guest today most certainly is not. He is a sharp. Let's get to our guest today, episode 6, Anik Squared. Today's guest is dripping with energy, charisma, and good looks. You've seen him all over ESPN Network, Daily Wager on ESPN2, but most recently, and big congratulations, Carlin versus Joe, weekdays 12-3, ESPN Radio, nationwide. So happy for your success. So great to see you. Congratulations, bro.
That is exactly how you should open an interview. Thank you for that. You've got the juices flowing. Like now you've built me up to where you can start asking the tough questions and I'd be willing to answer. But jokes aside, it's good to see you too. It's been a while. It's going to take a lot of restraint to not ask about next Saturday night's card with all the changes that have been made. I'm going to restrain myself here. I know you two have probably been talking about it quite a bit, but thank you for the invite. More importantly, thank you for the invite. You caught the Mel interview, huh? Mel and Dari over the weekend.
Yes, and it's great to just watch your star rise. And of course, a nationally syndicated radio show is just an outstanding achievement for anybody in sports media. But Mel Kiper Jr. is probably my favorite sports media personality talent. I just love him. And I love the NFL draft. I just really like his style. Always have. I started at ESPN Radio in 2006, so I used to do updates on Dari and Mel at times when they would call my number. So I know that radio show has been around for a long time. And no, just feeling how much and hearing in Mel's voice how much he liked you warmed my little heart. So no, it's just been all good things. And I did tail you on a couple of those wagers which came in. So it's all systems go. I mean, for you, it's just got to be a crazy existence right now during the NFL season, baseball playoffs, and everything else.
Trying to settle in. It's all about rhythm. It's all about routine with me. I am ADHD brain, like personified. So every Wednesday, generally in the afternoons, I have my therapy appointments. We work through a lot of our stuff during the course of the week. We've recently diagnosed that I have this hyper focus that I put into the day, and it keeps me organized and it keeps me on track. But then at night, that's where I'll hit the bottle a little bit to try to quiet all that, or I'll kind of let myself get sloppy with overeating, things of that nature. So not to get too long-winded with that, but I'm always trying to optimize a little bit, always trying to figure out where are some of the issues. We're not perfect. So let's identify the problems and let's try to make some improvements here and there. And I'm a creature of the big to-do list Sunday night for the whole week, and then each night, the very detailed to-do list for the next day. So kind of locking in and working myself through the day. We're 5 weeks, 6 weeks into the season now, and I have a pretty good routine going on. So it feels pretty good. It's busy, but it's rewarding. Like this to me is something I have the opportunity to do. It's not something I have to do. I love you two guys. You guys know that. So the opportunity to jump on with you, like put that on the to-do list and then clear out the time. If I had the damn Google Chrome downloaded, I would have been here on time. I clicked the link like usual, had not prepared. Safari not supported.
Well, hey, it's all good. It's good to have you here. And we do have to have you on the Anik and Florian podcast to talk a little bit of UFC. But great to have you here in a football capacity. And Jay, the floor is yours, brother.
So you are based in Vegas, if I'm not mistaken. So for you, this show is 9 to 12. Yes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful,
so 9
right?
to 12 in the morning, which is nice because then right afterwards, we generally have Daily Wager 3 to 4 p.m. And then boom, have the evening to myself.
I love it. So what I'm just curious, you seem to be tapped into so many different sports. I know you know the UFC well, and obviously all the major sports. There are plenty of guys that have no idea anything about the UFC that I'm sure are in your business. Are there any sports that you were kind of light on that in this current role you've had to sort of watch more and get more familiar with?
You know, it's funny. My background is football. So I started writing for this little website in 2008, which kind of paved the way to Radio Hits, which led to a radio job in San Francisco, which led to everything you're seeing now. Along the way, I was back living in Allentown, PA after law school. I'm late 20s, early 30s. I'm living with my parents. I'm writing for this website, but I got nothing going on. I'm not dating anyone. I don't have any money. I got nothing. And I'm saying to myself, you know what? I'm going back out west. I went to law school in San Diego. I'm going back west. I'm going to move to Vegas. I'm going to get to know every bookmaker. I'm going to get to know every professional bettor. And I'm going to write about it. I'm going to write about it on this website. I'm going to tweet about it. I'm going to talk about it. And then maybe one day, if everything gets legalized, I'll have an opportunity to jump in with a major network. Along the way, I get an opportunity to co-host mornings in San Francisco. And then, I keep podcasting, I keep writing, and then boom, PASPA's repealed, and the rest is kind of history with ESPN. But I was mostly pro in college football. Everything else was just kind of ancillary. It was fun. Doing that radio gig in the Bay made me have to learn baseball inside and out because I got up there right after the Giants won their third World Series. I had to know hoops because the Warriors dynasty started that year. So that kind of gave me all the background I needed. And then the nuance began. So football is obviously the strong suit. I've gotten better at basketball. I have to stay away from baseball. Every August, I lose money betting baseball and I start football season in a hole. It is guaranteed. I told myself I would not do that this year. I didn't bet baseball until 1 week before football, immediately went into a hole. Like immediately. Like I do it every year. So that's where I'm weak. The fun thing about UFC for me, and this is why I'm so into it right now, being here in town, getting to go to the Apex, getting to go to the events at T-Mobile, I don't know a lot about it. That's what I love about it. Like I've been so wrapped up in these other sports for years, knowing where these dudes went to college, knowing their 40 times. I don't have the background at UFC. So I lean on guys who know this shit inside and out. And that's how my betting gets aligned. So I'm betting based on recommendations, on tips, on my network. And then I like sitting back and just one fight after another. Like again, for my ADHD brain, one fight after another works perfect for me. There's no time for me to lose focus before the next fight comes out. It's the best thing to bet by far.
So oftentimes you'll be asked for an NFL or collegiate football prediction or pick early on in the week. And we know these betting lines are jumping all over the place. We filmed our show last week on a Tuesday, which is certainly less than ideal. We sit here talking to you on Wednesday. Largely the injury reports are not really out there. So how do you navigate that in terms of the handicap, right? Just focusing on the football you see and how good a team is versus all the fucking intangibles and scheduling stuff and injury reports that really can be so time consuming, especially for a UFC play-by-play announcer that's about to go to Abu Dhabi.
I bet you have no anxiety about that flight, knowing you as well as I do.
Yeah.
Great questions. There's pros and cons to both of those things. The pro would be you have a better opportunity to beat the closing number earlier in the week, right? You're going to beat the move. You're going to beat the public's action late in the week. Conversely, you might not know what's happening with weather. Washington, Oregon could have some showers this weekend. That's a relatively high total, two big offenses. You might not know what's going to happen with some key injuries to players, so you have to project on that front as well. So there is a balance to it. Earlier in the week for me, the process always begins Sunday night with the next week's NFL, and then Sunday afternoon while I'm watching, there's also a little bit of college creeping into play. Monday morning, I'm up earlier than anything. It's not one of my busier days compared to everything else. It's probably right in the middle, but I try to get up around 3:30 in the morning and I just start consuming line moves. I start sending emails. I start reaching out to the network to see what people are thinking, where lines are going to move, and then what we can get on earlier in the week. And then that kind of builds the framework for how we're going to work through the week. I'm lucky enough to get to go on First Take on Thursdays. First Take's going to want to talk about the biggest games. They don't give a shit about my Georgia Southern pick. They don't want to talk about it. So that with this job, it's going to be about balancing a few things. Big games are what they want to talk about. And they're also going to want sides and totals. They don't want you going too in the weeds on 6-point teasers or specific player props that no one's heard of. So you try to kind of balance it. You're working to educate some of the people on it because they're new to it as well. And you're trying to find that middle ground where everyone comes away happy.
Yeah.
John, I just want to ask him, and I know you say this is not a UFC free zone, but Joe, like your listeners in the morning, correct me if I'm wrong. Probably, if you talk about the UFC, does anybody give a shit?
It would be, from a traditional radio standpoint, it's not viewed as a major item, especially this time of year because of football. Football is going to drive everything. You could talk anything about the Dallas Cowboys, and that's going to be important to them. Now, that said, the UFC has some really big cards, and then there are times a year, especially with the relationship with ESPN, where they're going to want that stuff in. And when we talk more in the spring and the summer, that's where that sport has a little bit more of a chance to shine on radio networks and TV networks, because you're not being overshadowed by Dallas, Philadelphia, Kansas City, Denver on a Thursday night. What I can tell you is this: while we might not necessarily be pushing it on radio right now, almost everyone affiliated with my show is into it. Like today, we were talking during the pre-show meeting, a third of it got corrupted by the Volkanovski news. Like right out of the gate, that's what we all wanted to talk about. So there are opportunities. It's just tough this time of year, given, some of the things we're talking about regularly.
Oh, of course. And it's interesting because my schedule this year, I think 23 live events. I've already called 20 of them as we sit here early October, right?
Really?
A lot of the big shows. Well, since we aligned with ESPN, I think in 2019, the schedule lightens up in that fourth quarter because of football, right? There's not nearly as much inventory, which obviously dovetails with your point. But I think my brother's just trying to position me for an appearance on Carlin versus initiative. So.
Honestly, I feel like I should be able to just reach out to you, and I'm certain you would say yes. Still a little intimidated. Like, I know we've gotten to know each other, but it's like, fuck, man, I see you in Australia and Singapore. You are the voice of this thing. Like, it's still pretty impressive to get an opportunity to speak with you.
You are too kind. ESPN's Joe Fortenbaugh with us here on Anik Squared. So, gosh, so many different directions in which we can go. Jay, I'm going to save the NFL stuff for you. In terms of the human interest stuff, you're a Philadelphia sports fan, tried and true, are you not? So this is a hugely important time. I feel as good as you do about your Philadelphia Phillies. I believe nationally you have said you still feel good about them. I know when most people ingest this, Game 3 will have already been played. But what a time to be a Philadelphia sports fan. I mean, how the Fly Guys going to be, Joseph?
They're going to suck. They're going to suck balls, man. Like what's disappointing is if you're a Philly fan, and you guys being Boston guys probably know this as well. Like a lot of people outside of some of these towns don't get this, but when your hockey team is good in a town like that, it's a great thing to follow in the spring when you're in the playoffs. That is an absolute rush. Some of my best sports memories are being at Flyers games. The year, I know this is going to open up a wound, but when they came back from 3-0 down against the Bees, like they win that series. And now all of a sudden you're live. You're thinking we could be hoisting a cup. So you've got Montreal in the conference finals. We all had tickets to game 1. We go down. It's an orange out. I think it was like a 6-1 final. Like the Flyers just put it on them early. Wells Fargo was going crazy. Absolutely crazy. It was one of the best sporting events I was ever at. So for them to suck this much right now is very disappointing. Now, are you going to complain when you got a Super Bowl contender and a World Series contender? No. Those two teams have been fun as hell. I was having this conversation with someone the other day because they were like, are you still a fan of the Sixers? Yeah, I'm a fan of the Sixers. I can't fucking stand what they do, though, at all. They are not representative of that city. That is a blue-collar underdog town. It's Rocky Balboa's country, right? Like everyone sees it like that. The Eagles kind of came out of nowhere last year. The Phillies are the classic wild card team that just gets hot, led by Bryce Harper. That's easy to fall in love with. The Sixers, prima donnas, they don't want to play. They can't close out the Celtics. Boo-hoo, we can't score in the fourth quarter. Like, that's not representative of the town. All that complaining, all that choking, they're on my last fucking nerve.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
All right, so we'll get you out of here because I know your time is valuable. So
please.
Terms of the NFL, hate to do it on a Wednesday, but any game sort of pique your interest early on as we look at week 6.
Oh, look at this.
What's ahead?
You think I showed up unprepared? You think I was going to just duck questions? Come on now.
Not. I love it.
All right.
Talk to me.
So I got about 6 here I'm looking at right now. There's two I've already made. The lines have moved a little bit. I'd still play them. Number 1 is the Colts plus the points in Jacksonville. Okay. It was Jacksonville plus 5.5. It's already down to about 5, and it's starting to move towards 4 as well. Couple things to keep in mind here. Colts have been way feistier than I thought they would be. And I don't think it's a big blow that Anthony Richardson's out and Gardner Minshew's stepping in. They look good with Minshew. Shane Steichen hasn't playing well. More importantly is the handicap of what we just saw from Jacksonville. 2 weeks in London. You know as well as anybody the body clocks from traveling around the globe. You're over there 2 weeks. You get comfortable with that. That's your advantage against the Bills. You take out a big game hunter like the Bills. You're riding high. You're coming home. The line's a little bit overinflated. Divisional rivalry game. You know how this one can get sloppy. I would take the points with Indianapolis. I think they're going to be ready for them. I wouldn't be surprised if Jacksonville's defense was a little sloppy, and that team commits a few too many penalties for my liking. So that would be number one. Number two, I don't know if the public will be on this at all. I feel like it's going to be public, but the London game featuring Baltimore over Tennessee, it opened somewhere around 5. It got as low as 3. I don't know what the hell's going on. Is it because everyone's souring on Baltimore from last week? They're resilient under Harbaugh. They lose games and they bounce back. And not only that, Tennessee, I love Vrabel as a coach. He doesn't have much to work with. I don't think they're very good. You're going to go over there and get the best possible punch from Baltimore. I like Baltimore to bounce back, and I like the Colts plus the points. I got other ones for you, but I don't want to just corrupt the podcast and just ramble on for the next 20 minutes.
No, it's amazing to, and Joe and I have had the chance to work together a little bit on the side, but it really is amazing to sort of track your career from afar, dude. It's absolutely awesome. And, I'm not trying to sort of brown nose you on the way out, but you really resonate with people. And that's why, you end up on a show. Well, you end up on a show like First Take and you get invited back because, people can tell that you are a good person of good values. And then obviously your information and your entertainment is front and center as well. So if you want more from this cat, and why would you not, on Instagram, it is at J Fortenbaugh, Fortenbaugh, Joe Fortenbaugh of ESPN. Look forward to talking to you in the not too distant future, brother. We appreciate the time sincerely.
I want to let you know something, and I know that people are very, very guarded with this information, but I am eventually going to be asking for the name of your tailor. I'm going to eventually be asking. Now, if you're guarded on that, I completely understand if that's a no. But Jason, you know this. You've seen it up in close. I mean, Jesus, the guy looks good. Do you go to the same guy? Do you go to the same guy?
Yeah, Mark Russell will take great care of you. You can be sure.
We talk about this all the time. It's all about the fit. There's nobody better than him. And I am going to put my Washington football team hat back on soon. But yes, Mark Russell's the guy. We'll get you guys in line. Radio guy Joe Fortenbaugh looks pretty good on TV. Hey, thank you, brother. You're the man.
It's my pleasure, fellas. Thank you for having me. Anytime.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Fortenbaugh joining us on Anik Squared. So being a Patriots fan, man, it's been tough this season. But despite that, National Football League regular season Sundays are still my favorite 18 days of the entire calendar year. I got multiple screens going, locked into all things pro football, action, bets, all over the board. We at Anik Squared are happy to announce that we have partnered with our title sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official partner of the National Football League, to bring all new customers an exciting way to join in on the action right now. New customers download the DraftKings app, use our promo code SQUARED, that's SQUARED, bet just $5 and boom, $200 in bonus bets hit your account instantly. So don't wait any longer, get some skin in the game and download the DraftKings app now. Stay in on the action and use that $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same game parlays. Combine multiple bets together from the same game for a shot at an even bigger payout. And if sports betting's not yet available in your state, don't worry, you can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, sign up using promo code SQUARED. Again, bet just $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Before we get into the NFL picks, I have one future for everybody right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. Pretty chalky selection, perhaps. The Vegas Golden Knights to repeat as Stanley Cup champions, 12 or 13 to 1 right now. I think they do it. I think they actually do it. So anything double digits for me is going to be a season-long repetitive play on the Vegas Golden Knights. Health is wealth, but I meant to say that before Joey Kidd got on out of here. VGK plus 1,200 to hoist Lord Stanley's Cup.
It's interesting that you say that because as I'm watching those guys arm in arm as the banners raised, I'm curious about the guys who weren't on the roster last year, standing there arm in arm who weren't part of that. And you can be sure those guys that won the cup, they want to win it for those new guys. You know what I mean? So I hear you. I like that. Joe Fortenbaugh is sharp, and I am going to prove that I am square. This is going to be fascinating. I'm going to roll first. Because I did win the week 3-2 for me last week, 2-3 for you. And I'm going to just say it again. Joe Fortenbaugh is sharp. I am square. My first number one selection going against the sharp. I like the Jaguars -4 versus the Colts. I like Gardner. And honestly, I have some alternate selections. I almost wanted to get rid of these. You can be sure I'm not going in the sports book against my boy, Joe Fortenbaugh. But I like Gardner Minshew more as a backup than a starter. I think the loss of Anthony Richardson is going to catch up with them here. The Jaguars go to London. For me, they flip their record from 1-2 to 3-2 in an 8-day span. You come back home. I think they have a little juice. They have 2 road games coming up at the Saints, at the Steelers. Then they're back home for the 49ers. So to me, a team that's 3-2 with high expectations, this is a game you have to win. We left the Bills out of our 5 last week because of it. We sort of believe in this Jacksonville team. So this to me is more about the Jacksonville Jaguars than the Indianapolis Colts. A lot of people were talking beginning of the season, Trevor Lawrence putting him in that echelon. I just think they get to 4-2 here. I hope they do it by 5 or more. Be fascinating to see if Joe Fortenbaugh and I head-to-head who wins that. But my first selection, Jacksonville -4 versus the Colts.
And you on the Jacksonville side are getting the best number, right? It's been 5.5, 4, 4.5, right? So you're getting Jacksonville -4. I, on the other hand, am getting the worst of the number because as you will see here, I am aligned with my guy, Joe Fortenbaugh. Colts +4 at Jacksonville. So a lot of my handicap, I think, is the same as Joe's. It's a rematch from week 1 that was won by the Jaguars 31-21 at Indianapolis. Now, if you are a bettor or a handicapper that leans into the London stuff, this one is for you. Scheduling variables, right? And we mentioned this stretch to begin October for the Jacksonville Jaguars. 4 games in 19 days, right? You sort of softly touched on the schedule. They turn around this next Thursday and play at New Orleans. So a lot of flight time to sort of for Doug Peterson to figure out how to attack these next 10 days or so. They get 2 wins in London, but there's a readjustment coming back. I do love watching Trevor Lawrence play, but I cannot trust the Jaguars to lay a big number here. I think it comes down to, can they bottle up Zach Moss? And to quote Joe, this feisty Indianapolis team that is good on both sides of the ball. I would agree with you. I'd rather have Anthony Richardson than I would Gardner Minshew. But I do want those 4 points. Indianapolis +4 at Jacksonville to kickstart my card for week 6.
Always nice going head-to-head on Anik Squared. That would be a big one for you to pick a game up on me, considering you are trailing by 4 games through only 4 weeks. A little bit of a deficit. My second selection, I'm going back to the Los Angeles Rams. Rams -7 versus the Cardinals. Rams got to be happy to see the Philadelphia Eagles get the fuck out of town, huh? Those Eagles, man, they're just so good on both lines. They just beat them up, wear you down. Arizona Cardinals, they've had some good moments this year, but it's still an inferior roster. I just think this is a great spot to bet the Rams. You got Cooper Kupp with 1 game under his belt. There are weapons at Matthew Stafford's disposal. And the Cardinals defense isn't good. The Bengals, I think, put some good stuff on film defensively for Raheem Morris and Sean McVay to look at. And I think the Rams put up a big number here. I think they win by double digits, whether it's 10-14. My second pick, Rams -7 against the Cardinals.
So foremost challenge of this exercise is that we cannot land on the same games. And with bye weeks in play, Jay, we might have 14, 15 games on the board and we got to pick 10 of them. So Rams -6.5 was one of my favorite bets of the week. You said 7. So I have that punched at 6.5 and I won't get into it, but I just really think that the Cardinals, as plucky as they have been, they're yielding 27.2 points per game. Granted, against a tough schedule, but not getting any easier here. I like the Rams to get to at least 27 and win that game, perhaps going away. But now I got to pivot a little bit.
5, yeah. So let's hear the second selection.
Lions -3 at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This Detroit offense is just explosive, and this is me listening to you a little bit, and you've obviously been pretty sharp this year. So even if the Lions offense does not have the sum of its parts, as was the case last week, I just don't think the elite nature of this team, 1 through 45 on game day in terms of offense, defense, special teams, coaching, is reflected in the odds just yet. You and I agree it's a 3-horse race in the NFC. San Francisco, Philadelphia, and not Dallas, but Detroit. So I'm not going to overthink this one. I think the Lions can win the Super Bowl. Tampa Bay, pretty good situation, of course, on the other side, coming off the bye week. Mike Evans will likely have a injury designation. Bucs defense statistically has been stingy. Baker Mayfield appears on a mission. There are some concerns, but I think levels with these teams are different, in my opinion. And I'll take the Detroit Lions -3 at Raymond James this Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
I'm glad someone's drinking the Dan Campbell Kool-Aid. I was off them this week. That game just sort of scared me a little bit. My third selection going against our guy, Joe Fortenbaugh, again, man, in London. I'm on the Titans +4.5. I know John Harbaugh already has the troops in England, but it's not as if Mike Vrabel's not going to have his guys ready to play on Sunday. And Tajay Spears, the rookie out of Tulane, I believe, who is the complement to Derrick Henry. That is legit. That sort of back and forth there, whether it's thunder and lightning, I just love that compliment there. Last week, 69 yards and 11 touches for Spears. I think the Ravens are going to be hungry for a win, but so will the Titans. I do expect the Ravens to play well, but for me, I think the Colts last week, the Titans weren't good on third down, but the connection between Tannehill, DeAndre Hopkins is there. 8 catches for 140 yards. I think they build on that. I don't necessarily think they win that game, but I'm going to gobble up that 4.5 points in London. I think those games tend to be a little bit rough getting going. So I'm going to go with the Titans plus 4.5, my third selection.
I continued to check the odds live on DraftKings Sportsbook as we tape here on a Wednesday afternoon as I try to see what the number is. But again, not getting a great number here and don't much care. 49ers -6 at the Cleveland Browns. Total is 37.5, which indicates that weather, as is often the case, is a consideration in Cleveland. I'm getting a stale number here. You could have had the Niners at -4.5 earlier in the week. Now it's 6, maybe trending towards 7. So I'm just buying high on San Francisco. Not a great time maybe to do that because of the nature of that win over the Dallas Cowboys. They're favored to win the Super Bowl right now. Some of this play is about the other side. You know, the Browns, they are coming off a bye. They are well coached, defensively outstanding. Deshaun Watson's health is a consideration for me here, but they need him to play. It's more of a play, I guess, on San Francisco's greatness and I guess a strategic play against you because you have the 49ers every week, and I was not going to afford you that opportunity. So, I'm going to bite my tongue a little bit. I'm going to swallow the 6 points. I think the San Francisco 49ers are the best team in the NFL, and they'll win by at least a touchdown at the Cleveland Browns.
I think that line will move a lot if Deshaun Watson doesn't play. I would expect him to play, but there's so much we just don't know.
It'll close, I would imagine, over 7 if it's Dorian Thompson-Robinson on this.
Far over. So I would say closer to 10. Maybe I'm wrong there. Anyway, my fourth selection, Falcons, -2.5 versus the Commanders. So Arthur Smith's Atlanta Falcons, 3-2. Coming off a nice win against that gritty Texan squad who sort of overachieved a little bit this year. So Falcons are great against the run, and they seem to be figuring things out. Bijan Robinson, Drake London is a fucking animal. Kyle Pitts was good last week. And I did not like at all what I saw out of Washington on Thursday night. I saw some guys quit on D, not running hard after they missed a tackle. And I feel like the Commanders may be becoming who we thought they were. They've lost 3 in a row. Their only wins back in weeks 1 and 2 against the Cardinals and the Broncos. The Falcons have back-to-back weeks on the road coming up. It's hard to win on this league on the road, no matter who you're playing. It's a great atmosphere there at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. I knew I'd get a smirk out of you there. You love that building. Oh. I just think they get to 4-2 here at home. Give me the Falcons -2.5, my fourth pick.
All right, fourth selection for me. Now, we'll go to the Thursday nighter. I led with the Colts, of course, in some part because you had your Jacksonville selection, but the Chiefs -10.5 home to the Denver Broncos on Thursday night. Let me clear my throat for this, Jay. And I do write some of this stuff, full disclosure. Sean Payton and the Broncos are in complete fucking shambles, man. Like, are they not? Are they not? They're allowing 450 plus yards a game. No other team is allowing more than 389 yards a game. I mean, we all love the 5'7" Jaleel McLaughlin, but I don't expect him to have his way against the Kansas City defense. Yes, Javonte Williams, full participant at practice on Wednesday. Travis Kelce limited in practice for the Chiefs, but you got to think that he'll suit up. And they're just loaded, even if he doesn't suit up. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, in them I trust. It's a straight Broncos fade, though, despite some obvious talent, especially on the offensive side. The Chiefs laying 10.5 Thursday night is a play for me in week 6.
Any chance you're going to push us to play that in the contest?
I don't know, man. It's Wednesday, right? Let me sound like one of these sharper minds out there. I don't know, man. Like,
yeah, but
let the board marinate and we'll see what happens in the morning. Quite possibly.
Yeah, but all you have is till tomorrow morning. That's the point. My fifth and final selection. Fins up again, man. Dolphins -13.5 versus the Panthers. Dolphins this season 4-1 against the spread. I mentioned it earlier. Panthers 0-4-1 against the spread. Even without Devon Achane. I got it, right? Achane, man. This guy, this name, we're not going to be talking about this name, but this team's way too good even without him. Last week got a little closer than they would have liked against the Giants. I just think they get over 30. Carolina struggles to get to 20. The Dolphins' next 3 games, 2 of which are on the road at Eagles, at Chiefs before their bye week. You just can't fuck around here. You got to take care of the Panthers. You know, the Panthers were beat up 42-24 by a Lions team that really isn't completely healthy. Last week, missing Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, now down to South Beach. It's still 90 degrees and humid down here. I think that's the blowout on the board. The Bills -14 versus the Giants. I felt like the Dolphins had a better chance for this to be a complete rout than the Bills did. Interesting enough, I have to say, the alternate selection, I wrote a whole thing about liking the Texans versus the Saints, but as I did the homework, I almost leaned toward the Saints. So I left that one off. My final selection, Dolphins -13.5, versus the Panthers.
So I only had one alternate selection written down. I do like the Saints -1.5. That is not it, but it's in the script, man. I mean, Ravens -4.5 against the Tennessee Titans in London. You know, part of my reluctance is that I feel like it's not going to be 1 p.m. Eastern and I'm going to be 0-2 against you. But I like the Baltimore Ravens -4.5. They have just left so many points on the field already, and they're still winning football games. But like, gave one away last week doesn't even begin to describe it. Like, it's not, you know, Mario Cristobal bad not taking a knee. But I really like the Ravens -4.5. Part of my reluctance is, what, he just going to align with the guy who's actually paid to give out selections? You know, I like the Saints -1.5, but for the record, it's got to be what I have in print. Ravens -4.5. I think they got a great chance to blow out Tennessee in London over the week.
It'll be really fascinating to see if Joe goes 2-0 against me there, because I wanted to take them out, but I'm not going to do it. I have to ask you, I saw that you already played the Bengals in our account, -2.5.
Yes.
Do you like that as much as you did when you played it?
Well, it's the number. I bet the number. So let's go into DraftKings Sportsbook right now before we get on out of here and just see what the number is right now. So, yeah, I mean, certainly, yeah, it's -3, -108 right now. So, no, that was just about, you know, with our local guy, we got 2.5, and we want to punch that because, man, Joe Burrow looked good last week, and maybe I'm leaning too much into that, but I thought Jamar Chase was on fire, and maybe I was wrong about that team. You know, I thought a couple of weeks ago there was a good chance they lost to Arizona and lost at home to Seattle. And I guess Seahawks coming off the bye maybe gives me a little bit of pause, and numbers suggest that Seahawks might be pretty good. You know, I'm a Geno Smith fan historically, but yeah, I mean, a consideration at 2.5, but not at 3 when we're here doing the show.
And final question for you, any lean Jets +7 hosting the Eagles?
I kind of like the points with the Jets.
Likewise.
That, I think, probably flies in the face of maybe what you're hearing from some of the more astute minds out there. But I do like the Jets +7 against Philadelphia.
A little bit. That'll do it for week 6, episode 6, Anik Squared. Joe Fortenbaugh, we appreciate you, brother. That dude is amazing. Cody Merrow, as always, at the helm. For the voice of the UFC, Jon Anik, my name is Jason Anik. We'll see you next week 7. We appreciate you being with us. Enjoy the games. Later.